have to have a quorum and but a majority of those who are have to have a quorum and but a majority of those who are
won't show you, but I certainly know what it's raining before anyone else.
Thank you.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to the Beach Advisory Committee meeting. I'm going to first call the roll. Carol?
Here.
Okay. John?
Here.
Barry?
Here.
Oh, good. Paul?
I'm here.
Jenny? You're here.
I suddenly went blank. Yes, I'm
Oh, you're there.
Okay. And I'm here, obviously. So we have 6 members here. Joanne Guston is not able to be here tonight, and I haven't heard from Ed Hutchinson since I'm not seeing him on the screen, I'm assuming.
Actually, Ed's in the attendees. I think, Dave, can you promote him?
Oh, great. I'm glad you could see that. I don't even know how to go look at that.
Yeah, he must have hit the wrong link.
Okay, wonderful. I think Ed is here, but
I'm here.
you're Ed?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, great. So we are only missing one member tonight. So Joanne Guston, who could not make it tonight, but we have a quorum, more than a quorum. Thank you. Let's start off with the minutes from the October 4th meeting. Does anybody have any comments or questions or changes to suggest on those?
Oh, move that we accept him.
second.
Okay. Here, let's go for the roll call. Carol?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Paul?
Yep.
Ed?
I wasn't there, so I won't vote.
Okay. Jenny?
Yeah, the minutes look good. Fine. Thanks.
Okay. And I vote approve to approve them too. So minutes are approved. Okay. On the next item, there was some additional information we wanted from Lori, and she was good about providing me some additional information. I have to take the responsibility for saying I have not dealt with them as I should, and tonight when I went to pull them out, I literally can't print them out and look at them or discuss them over. So I would like to table that particular item until our next meeting, just because I don't have the information available, but I'm sure we probably have what we need. I just can't really discuss it tonight. My fault, and I apologize.
Can you just forward it around to everybody?
Yeah, I will. I absolutely will.
Thanks.
Okay. And then, so let's go on to 4, which is the review of the beach campfires. We do, part of what I will forward around to you was a report. The police chief, and this has also already been reported to the Board of Selectmen, but we agreed all that we should take our look at it and make a recommendation to the selectmen about what to do, whether to go forward, et cetera. What we had was July 18th was the start of the removing the moratorium on beach campfires based on the new rules that we put into effect. And as you recall, July was a pretty rainy month. So for the balance of the summer, from July 18th through the end of the summer season, the police department issued a total of 18 permits, which was a significant drop from 2 years ago and the last time when we had beach campfires permitted, which I think was quite in the hundreds. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. So we don't know whether the significant drop was retained as the new rules require. And the police chief said that out of the 18 permits, which now have a higher, a $250 cash or money order deposit required, only one deposit was retained. And I can't give you any stats on how that compares to previous years, how many fire permits, which were at that point deposits, which were at that point only $50 were retained. But so based on that, the police chief recommended keeping the campfire permit process in place for next summer, and then seeing how we go, doing another full review in the fall of 2022. So that's what we're bringing to you. This is a report to you guys, and what you want to do. Do you also think that that's what should be done, and we should send a motion forward to the selectmen, then that's our recommendation?
Let me make a motion that we accept that recommendation and do as stated, and then we can get it seconded, and if possible, and then we can discuss it.
I think that would be great. You're making the motion. Will somebody second it?
Yep, Paul.
Okay. Discussion. Or questions?
Yeah,
Question from the board.
I
first
think
of all.
in light of the fact that it was only for half the season and it was a rainy July, it seems to make sense to continue it one more year and reassess, to me.
Right.
Get a better sense of the community's response to it.
And even though there were only 18 permits, there were only 2 complaints associated with those permits. And one of them resulted in holding back the fee, which is appropriate. So to me, it sounds like it's working extremely well.
Kate, did you say that the fire chief has reviewed what we propose? So the police
That's a
chief
good
and the
question.
fire chief both have reviewed them?
I don't remember at the selectmen's meeting that was discussed. I don't think that the fire chief was, in fact.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I think it was just Chief Sanford.
Yeah.
He's the one who monitors the permits, so that would be appropriate. Like the fire chief would only say something if he had something contradictory or supportive to say, I would think.
Well, the fire chief had said, presented comments in general about campfires before we put in place these new rules. And we thought that these new rules hopefully took into account some of his concerns, particularly with regard to the possibility of spread, given the container requirement now and the water requirement, the water nearby requirement. So I think that we've tried to meet his comments, and the fact that he either, I don't know whether didn't have any to give at the time when the chief came forward to the selectmen or what.
Ed, what do you think?
I think we should go ahead. Only 2 complaints.
Or
I
complaint?
think that's pretty impressive.
Or
So do I.
Or actually,
4?
okay, yeah.
But the two were on permit. The 2 were on permit. The other 2 were on permit.
you're right.
Right.
So there's always going to be that.
There's always going to be somebody complain. Yeah, I think that we just need to bake that into the cake right then and there. Somebody's not going to be happy because somebody else is having a good time. So, but I think the Board of Selectmen, again, I'll only speak for myself, but, I'd be, I'm willing to support this motion and give it another year. If we have worst case scenario in the middle of July, we find out things aren't working next summer, we can always revisit the issue.
Mhm.
Right.
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 There's no good answer, to this. It is a little bit complicated. You're burning things. It's hot. You got to remove it at some point, etc. So, if we only had kept one person's deposit, I think we're ahead of the game.
Yeah, I would say that I think I knew right from the beginning, made plain that I'm not heavily in favor of continuing campfires at all. That to me, they don't seem to be an absolute necessity for enjoying the beach. But obviously, there are a lot of people at the beach, and we had our public hearing, particularly people who've been here for a long time, who would really like to see it continue. So I think we continue. I would recommend that we continue, that we go along, support John's motion, send that forward with, as you said, definitely review it at the end of the next beach season. And if we start to see problems developing, then we can always, Paul.
Yeah, I'll be the chairman next year, so you can call me anytime if you have problems.
Hey, we got an end. That's good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm in favor of going forward. I think as a courtesy, I would support the resolution for tonight. I think as a courtesy, we should check in with the fire chief, and if Kate, if you feel it needs to come back to us before it goes to the Board of Selectmen, so be it.
Okay.
And I would also say we haven't told people in the audience how to comment. Do you want them to, if anyone has a comment, do they put in a chat? What are we doing?
I'm assuming that if, Dave, do we have anybody raising hands as
They
we
would raise their hand, I think, if they wanted to comment.
Yeah, I think that's the way we're doing it, have been working so far. Do we see, if we've got all the board members' comments, then the committee members' comments, let's check in and see if Dave and see if there's anybody in the general public that seems to want to comment on this.
Hey, I just have one comment. It's Barry.
Oh, sorry, Becky.
No, that's okay. Given I believe I was the only dissenter, but I'm pleased with the results so far, and I think it is leading to a better solution. And I do fully support the resolution, and let's give it a little bit more time and see where we are a year from now.
Great.
We
Okay.
do have a hand up, Kate.
Okay. How can you see that? Why can I not see that in here?
Bring up a participants panel,
Yeah.
and then go to
Oh, I
attendance.
see that. Thank you very much. Okay.
She's got her mic off.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cheryl DeMar. My husband's family has been at Goose Rocks for 3 generations now. And I understand that the fires are a safety issue that, need to be monitored. But I think it would be very sad to completely prohibit beach fires at Goose Rocks. They're a family tradition for so many people. And I think you'll get so much blowback from so many people that it would be not be in everyone's best interest to do that.
Okay. I appreciate that. I think that your comments are consistent with many people who have, and when we had a public hearing back in, I think it was July or June or whatever, particularly people who have been coming here for many years, many generations. And so that's why we tried to come up with a solution that hopefully would address the safety concerns, and it seems to have been so far this summer. So hopefully we will be going forward with it unless next summer presents us with different problems.
And while I have your ears, just let me say thank you for what you folks do to try to maintain the quality of the Goose Rocks Beach experience while keeping everyone respectful of one another's space.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Cheryl, how do you feel about the campfire rules as we wrote them for this summer?
I think they're a little bit over the top. I mean, there are people like me who don't always have that kind of discretionary funds sitting around to plunk down for a permit. So to some extent, I feel like it's a bit excessive. That's just personally. I understand that it was done because for some people, it didn't faze them to plunk down $50 and then not get their deposit returned to them because they did not follow the rules.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that the deposit fee was not as high as it is. I mean, we'll have to budget for that in order to be able to do that. To have
It's not cash unless.
Yes, that is one other small point that really surprised at least one group that I've heard of this summer, that the younger generation went to apply for a permit and nobody had a checkbook. had even heard of what a checkbook was for the most part. So
I didn't realize that. So there's been a lot of talk about the beach fire issue among members of my husband's family, his cousins and whatnot. Is it true that you can have a fire on the beach if it's a cook fire, if you're cooking?
you can have a very small, I think you could have a, like a hibachi or something like that.
Okay. Okay.
But if you want to have something in the nature of a campfire, as people have thought of it traditionally.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some
Or-
enormous. Over the years, I've seen some enormous fires on the beach.
But
I,
again,
for one, our house is just a block back from the beach on Crescent Ave, and I, for one, love smelling the wood fire smoke when people have fires on the beach. It makes me all happy inside.
Unfortunately, before we made this move, all the fires were located along the entrance to Proctor Lane, and that became actually an issue. There was so much smoke that it went beyond the nostalgic smell to the rather bothersome volume. And also, just another note on those cook fires, they do need to be contained in something like a hibachi, nothing put into the sand. So it's just keep that in mind.
Yes, I understood that. So if I have a little covered, what they call a Smoky Joe, it's like a little mini Weber grill. I could use that on the beach to cook something.
Yes, I think that would be
Or for my 20-something-year-old sons to roast marshmallows and make s'mores, which they love to do.
truly important at any age. And I think that's excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
I've never done this before. This is crazy. I'm sitting here in South Carolina in my dark living room with my phone.
Isn't Zoom incredible? It really does allow people to connect. And that's a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the few silver linings of COVID.
Of the pandemic, yes, exactly.
Great.
So I have a quick question. Yeah. So now, I mean, the checkbook issue is a real issue because I mean they are really archaic at this point.
Yeah.
So what the choices for people right now are cash or check?
No, not even
Yeah,
cash.
money
Money order or check.
That's right.
So can we
Thank you.
move into the current century and fix that? Because that really
Well,
is.
There are a lot of
Unfortunately,
ways.
it's a restriction on the town. The town is not able to take the electronic currency. It's an issue beyond just this case.
Right.
And is that something the town is looking towards? Because it really is. I mean, a money order check is. It really is. The
understand.
generation younger than us is like.
I know.
I can't give you an answer to that as to what they're looking into. The only thing that I know we take payment electronically through is for your vehicle registrations, etc. And I believe that's done through the state, and then they charge you a fee to do it.
3%.
So it's-
Sure.
Yeah, it's not a good system.
The one
Can't
thing
you sign up for rec department programs, Ed?
What's
The
that?
credit card? Can you sign up for rec department programs? I thought that was all online.
Oh, you can, there are things you can pay for, but you end up paying a fee on top of that.
Right.
As far as that, Paul, I don't know as far as if the rec department. What I do know is, like I said, if you have to pay for your car registration, your boat registration, things like that. So as a fisherman, I buy fuel from the town. I pay my pier dues. So I joked. I told Yanina I'm having my next checkbooks just made right out to her because most of my business checks go to the town, and I've never asked them, but check seems to be the preferred.
Yeah,
payment
particularly when
over
you're
there.
going to get it back.
Yeah,
The expectation
exactly.
is you're going to get it back.
Exactly.
You'd have to have another charge to reverse the credit card charge.
Yeah.
So that's, another
Exactly.
3% or 5%. So that's silly.
Okay, can I make one comment on that? And it's without giving you a specific answer, but in a different context, when we were meeting that related to technology too, we'll discuss it a little bit further in the communications subcommittee report. My understanding is the town is doing a significant amount, I hope, of looking at its website in particular, and hopefully beyond that in other technology issues, and trying to, is aware of the fact that it probably does need to do some upgrading or stepping into the 21st century in some areas that they're not quite there yet. So I don't think this is an issue we can solve right now in any way, shape, or form, maybe even not by next summer, but we will, I think that the town is taking a look at its technology. And Dave, I don't know if you have any input on that or whatever, but I'm hopeful that they will continue with that process, and hopefully it will go beyond just looking at the website itself.
Yeah, and I can't promise you, Kate, I don't know the answer to this, but we may be hamstrung by the state as to what we can and cannot accept for electronic payments.
That was my understanding, Ed, but I don't know. But that's how I had originally heard it. But it may be changing. Can I call the motion?
Please.
Please, unless we have anybody else out in the public that has got a hand up, and I don't see anybody, but I don't see all the, oh, wait a minute. I don't see anybody with a hand raised.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. So yes, I have my hand up, but I'm being disruptive here. It's not pertaining to the issue at hand. I'm just looking at the names. John Dykstra, are you related to Patty, who I used to love to bump into?
Thank you, Cheryl. Yes, she was my mom. Yeah, thank you so much for that thought.
I think that she used to walk. I think, did you have a Cocker Spaniel?
Yeah, we had little Tomorrow. That was a Cocker Spaniel. Yeah.
Yes, she used to walk.
Can I call the motion?
Yes, please. We do need to call it. Cheryl, I would love to have a long agenda.
Sorry.
I would love to touch base with you. So we'll. I'm going to put my email in the chat. So you email me.
Wonderful.
Let's call the motion. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, folks.
That's
Thank
fine.
you.
Thank you. Connections are good. Okay, let's take a vote on the motion to recommend to the selectmen that the moratorium be lifted for next summer along the lines that the permit rules that we put in place this summer, with a follow-up review at the end of next summer. Carol?
Aye.
That's an aye?
Yep.
Okay. Barry?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Paul?
Yes.
Ed?
Aye.
And Jennifer?
Yes, aye.
And I'm voting aye too, so the motion is carried unanimously.
I'd still like the fire chief to review it too. It doesn't have to be part of the motion though.
Okay, I will take care of, I'll contact Lori when she gets back and talk to her about that. Okay? All right, so let's move on to the guts of the meeting is taken up by the various subcommittee reports, and we've had some very active and involved subcommittees, and I want to say a thank you to everybody who is serving on whatever subcommittee, whether it's those of us who are committee members, but many people from the community who are bringing their time and expertise to the various areas that we have issues that we want to deal with. I'll start off with the communications subcommittee, and I am looking to see, John, is Connie in tonight?
Yeah, let me see. I will find her for you.
Okay. Thank you. She is Fred here tonight? Fred. All right.
Charlene's here.
Who's here?
Charlene, where's Fred?
Oh, I did not. You're right. There's Charlene, but not Fred. Okay. All right. Well, the subcommittee on communications has been dealing with three major issues this winter, one of which is a suggestion that perhaps we somehow create a web page that is specific to Goose Beach. where we can have sort of one-stop shopping for anybody who wants to learn anything, to figure out what they can or cannot do, or to learn about the rules of the beach, to learn about things like piping plovers, etc. Hi, Connie.
Hello.
Hello. And I was just starting to explain that the work of the communications subcommittee, and particularly the first topic on the idea of creating a separate either website or web page. We've been looking at, we've talked with Lori Smith and Tracy O'Rourke a couple of times on this, and there were a couple of options offered, one of which is the simplest, if you will, and least expensive, is to start off by working within the town's existing website and create a web page that is specific to Goose Rocks Beach. And maybe Connie can, she's way better at the technology of this and questions on this, but I think at this point we're looking at exploring that option first and foremost, rather than trying to create a separate outside the town's website, totally separate website for the beach.
Is there an example of that currently? Is anybody doing that?
Well, my understanding from the last meeting we had is that the police department has their own separate webpage, and the solid waste committee also has their own separate webpage. Am I correct on that, Connie, within the town's website?
Right, they're still within the town's website though, because our understanding was as a committee or a subcommittee of the town, if there were a separate website, it would have to be, it couldn't be the Beach Advisory Committee site, but be separate from the town's website. So it could be a beach website, but not under the auspices of the committee.
So is the rec department, they have a pretty easy to use, is that within or that's without?
I don't know about the rec department, thank you. And I tried I confess that I tried reaching the, at least the police department's website, and we all know my technological skills are about as low in the grass as possible, but I wasn't able to find it on the website. So that's a learning curve, and that's something for me possibly, but in general, we want to make this as user-friendly. So maybe we do need to go back and look at the rec department, see if they have something that people are finding, if it is within the town's website, and find out that how they do it, if it is very accessible to the public. Because obviously the first and foremost purpose of this is to communicate, make one-stop shopping where people can find out hopefully anything, maybe even with frequently asked questions, et cetera, of what they need to know about the beach.
I just looked at the rec department. So you click and you get to a page within the town's website. And then it says for program information, click here. And that site is kennebunkportrec.com. So that's a separate site, and that's where you register for programs, and
Right.
it's much fancier looking. It's much, it's a little more user friendly.
Okay, well,
I
Connie,
can't see my phone, but if you type Google, that's what comes up, and then you can. This Pat says, Paul. I'm sorry, Paul. Sometimes I call you Pat. I had a friend named Pat Hogan when I grew up. So if you hear me call you Pat, it's just a habit. As Paul said, you can go straight to it, and it's a very nice site.
well, I think that Connie and I met with Lori and Tracy about a week or so ago. And before we had our last communication subcommittee meeting last week, I guess it was the week before. And I think at the conclusion from both meetings was that the next step is to try to put together a mock-up of what we would like to see
Right.
a Goose Rocks Beach page look at. Now, we have a Beach Advisory Committee page, and then if we created a separate, and there is a page, I think, that's under the here's things to know about Kennebunkport that does address the beaches, but doesn't have nearly the level of information that we would want to see. And it, of course, also covers Colony Beach. With all due respect to Colony Beach, I think we need to focus specifically on Goose Rocks Beach because it is so much larger, so much more heavily used, and there are just so many more issues. So,
And Kate, I don't know, you may have mentioned this before I came in, but we also learned from that the town is looking at undertaking a much larger redo of the website, which would be great. So that some of the questions in general about how things are hard to find, because we did say that, ideally it should at least be a much simpler URL to get to the beach page that you all could then put on refrigerator magnets or brochures or anything you want, where people can find Goose Rocks Beach without having it be a 10-inch long URL embedded in the town site. And we're very aware of that. That's part of the process. It'll be a little, it won't be until obviously later in the budget cycle and on into 22, maybe even, I don't know, late 22 before that happens. But, that's underway. So that'll be a next step to get more of what kind of functionality you all want in the town site. But there are interim steps you could take.
Right, and that's part of what we're going to be working on. And Connie has graciously agreed to try and put together sort of a mock-up of what we'd like to see a Goose Rocks Beach page possibly look at, what types of information. Maybe we talk about keeping two separate, the BAC still remaining as a separate page with the more, I don't want to say legalistic information, here's the beach rule, or here's the
committee function,
and things like that.
Right.
But the more popular type of information that it's what most people want to hear. They don't want to read a whole ordinance or anything like that. They want it as simple and straightforward as possible, as well as using it going forward for other more, I don't want to say fun things, informational things, such as information about, piping plovers or endangered birds, information about that people, the natural resources on the beach. So
get a fire permit.
How to get a fire permit, lots of, it opens up a lot of possibilities, and we're kind of excited about it. I think it was a brilliant idea. Thank you, Connie, for coming up with this suggestion. We're hoping we can get something in place by the next beach season. Maybe not the perfect solution, maybe not something, because again, and Connie, I had mentioned in another context that the town we know now is working, I think, with an outside consultant to review its website and its technological issues. Probably not expecting that process to be completed in time for the next beach season, but we think, and so there may be more possibilities and make it easier going forward. But for now, we're going to try to see if we can get some form of information out there, some venue for people to go to learn about the beach.
Fred's online as an attendee.
Oh, good. Great.
Maybe
Welcome, Fred.
you can let him in.
No. Yes, could you, or Charlene, and that will be, we'll get Fred as we talk further about. I'm going to try and kind of not leaving aside the web page, but we are seeing the whole question of communications involving the web page being an exciting way to communicate. But we're also, we're still in an age where we need some signage out there. The town feels we certainly need some signage, and we do feel that we do have a level of sign pollution right now. There are just so many signs. We've heard many comments from visitors saying, we've got all these signs, you almost can't see the beach, and in a certain sense, having a whole lot of signs tends to dissuade people from really focusing on any signs or getting the information that they might otherwise be able to get. So we are continuing with the website idea or web page idea, certainly, but that's also going to be in tandem with looking at the signage. And Fred Stafford has been wonderful about looking at the signs. He has a lot of experience in communications and marketing, and Fred, are you there? Oh, there you are, Charlene. Whoops, somebody's still muted.
Let's see. Yes, we're here.
Thank you. You were unmuted.
Okay.
So, Fred gave us. I'm somehow echoing here.
Oh. Fred, you need to mute it there. Look it up.
Okay, so he needs to be muted while I'm speaking. Is that the deal?
Yeah, he's got some wicked feedback.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just give a brief intro to that, and then I'll let Fred give some more explanation of what he's been doing. He's been taking the lead on looking at the signs that we now have, and looking at signage in other areas, other beaches, et cetera. And at our committee meeting last Thursday, he put forward a very first cut at signage, how we could, particularly the large sign that's at the entrance to each of the beach entrances and that has been there, beautifully designed years ago by the earlier Beach Advisory Committee members. And but at this point, I guess we're looking at are there more effective ways to put information out there? We are all more stepping into a digital age. And can we somehow link the two so that we maybe make shorter information bites on a sign, which the town feels we need to at least have some signage out there for enforcement purposes, but also perhaps link it to something like the web page or something, or one of those, what are they called, QRs?
QR codes.
Thank you. Because, as we've said, we've very often seen people not even stop to read the signs because they're trying to drag children and beach equipment and everything else out there. But if we can get something simpler out there, in addition, we need something in many cases that can be changed. Some of the information that's on the existing signs needs to be updated. And we want to try and put that together in a way that can be done. For example, the dog rules that need to be changed by season, preferably to get people information they need for that particular season. The water quality rules or reports, et cetera. So, Fred, do you want to unmute yourself and comment a little bit about the wonderful job that you're doing in the first draft you've put together?
Sure. Whoops. Hold on. Sorry here. Okay. All right. So I didn't expect a speaking part. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I didn't expect a speaking part tonight, but anyway, what I've been trying to do is just see how much we can consolidate the signs and possibly put as much as we can onto one rather than having so many. And one of the questions that comes up is, well, how much of what is posted is there for legal reasons to protect the town or whatever? Like when it comes to the water quality, that particular sign is pretty big, and there's a lot of verb to it, and it sounds kind of a lot, like legalese. So is there a way to kind of shorthand everything, And so I like the drone usage. That's a funny one because the town requests you don't use drones. There's no penalty if you do use a drone, apparently,
That's because we can't tell them that. We had a big discussion about that, but we have no legal authority because the FAA governs the use of drones, not local municipalities. And that's why, but I agree with you.
Yeah, okay.
But that's the reason for that.
All right, that's good to know. And I'm not saying we don't say it because I think everybody would prefer there weren't drones buzzing all over their heads and in people's yards and everything.
Absolutely.
But that's something, that verbiage we could easily put on a bigger sign so you wouldn't devote, an entire sign to that. And the other things there are the list of beach rules like no smoking, no fires, and without a permit, all those kinds of things. Those can quite easily be consolidated. So what I showed the group the other day was I took a first pass at just the language and cutting things down as much as I possibly could to still get the points across. And I don't think this is the proper venue to just toss that out there because it would probably raise more questions than it would answer. But
yeah, I think we're still. I just wanted. I didn't pass it around, and I think we're not quite ready to do that yet. But just let them know that what we're working on.
Yeah, there are certain things like we all know we need a new plover sign where those are posted, especially at the west end and things like that. Those are so faded. And things like that should probably be standalones anyway. I don't think because that information is so important at certain times of the year during the nesting that you would want to include it in something else where it could possibly get lost, and maybe it's even a seasonal thing, maybe later in the season you don't need it, but one of the big things too would be the dog rules. that's something that the mock-up I'm working on, and I think that's our next step before we can show everybody, is to really say this is what it would look like, but the dog rules and water quality too, if they can both end up on the same sign, those are things that we would have to be able to change, especially the dog rules. Well, water quality too. Water quality isn't always an issue, but when it is, you need to let people know. Mm-hmm. So the dog thing, though, the sign that's out there right now, I think is great, but the downside to it is you're covering the entire year. And so somebody walking onto the beach at any given time of the year has to take the time and really look through the information on the sign and find out, what they can do with their dog or not do on the beach at that time. So if we had an interchangeable part, that would address, nice and big, exactly what the rules are governing your dog on the beach that day. I think, it would be a lot easier for people. That would be right there for them, and you wouldn't have to, figure it out. I think it would just help us with enforcing the rules and getting people to comply if they didn't have to, go look at it and spend the time to figure out what can I do today or not, And so water quality too, whether these things bolt on or how they're interchanged, or they're changed when necessary. You don't want them to something that's so easy somebody could slide out and throw away, So anyway, just trying to consolidate things and come up with something that looks nice, but doesn't add to the sign pollution, I guess I would say.
Good. Does anybody have any further comments from the committee? And then we'll see if anybody from the general population has any input.
No, it sounds like you're onto something. Put it together and bring it up.
Yeah, I think
See something.
Yeah, it's easier to.
I know the chief complains about all the signs in town, so he'd probably be in favor of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. And then the other thing that's an important component of communication here at the beach is the Friends of Goose Rocks Beach Facebook page.
One thought, Kate, excuse me, we have a hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who we got?
William Van Ben Tyson, I will allow you to speak. Or you can speak.
Yes, hi. This is Bill Van Ben Tyson, 23 Winter Harbor Road. Just to follow up on the signage, we walk the beach regularly with our dog, and when you do stop to look at the sign, it is confusing for people. And case in point, this weekend we were on the beach with a family of 7 and our 2 dogs walking the beach, nicely leashed. And we're walking down the beach, and we see 2 dogs running down the beach towards us, not with anybody immediately in sight, several hundred yards behind, a couple walking along, without the dogs under control. And we commented to them that your dog's supposed to be on a leash this time of day. It was 2:00 in the afternoon. And the response was, not at Goose Rocks Beach, you don't. And clearly either they're a homeowner who doesn't see the signage or a person coming on the beach who can't discern from the sign what the requirements are or just doesn't care. But then at the same time, the drone that flew overhead as we're having the same conversation. So clearly there is a signage issue, and I applaud the committee's attempt to make it better and clearer. And I think the concept of interchangeable signs by the seasons is a great way to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Thank you.
Always good to have clear signs. I believe most of that's a compliance issue rather than a sign issue, but we'll see.
Okay, great. Thank you. The third element that we've been focusing on is the component of the Friends of Goose Rocks Beach Facebook page, which is now the administrator, fully and formally, is now Audrey Lakin, and she's been doing a fabulous job on running the Facebook page, providing beautiful photos as well as being a source of information, getting information out there about meetings, agendas, issues that are going on at the beach, volunteer days, anything that's going on. So we certainly think that's an important component of communications at the beach going forward. And we want to reach out to other groups at the beach who appear to be having more active Facebook pages along the same lines and see if we can kind of see where there's some symbiosis in what we're both doing. So that's pretty much the report on the Facebook page, unless, Audrey, do you want to say anything? I know you're watching. She's probably saying, oh, no, I don't. Thank you very much. I don't see her waving her hand. So I will again thank her and tell you that we consider it an important component of communications about the beach, educating people, et cetera, and we'll go forward from there on that. And I think that basically is the report from the Communications Subcommittee, unless anybody has any questions or other comments from the community. And I don't see anybody raising their hands on what I can see on that side.
Kate, I did get an email. There's on the chat. Can you see on the chat board?
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I got it.
From Edward Kramer.
Yes, I just saw that. I just figured out we had a chat. Thank you. Okay, so that relates more to the committee report that will be coming to a little bit later. Thank you for pointing that out, though. Okay, so if we are done with communications, let's move on to natural resources, which has also been very, very active, and John Dykstra and Paul Hogan, take it away.
Sure. I'll stay on communication for 1 second. We discussed at our last meeting, the subcommittee meeting, suggestions for the website that related to the work that we're doing, or that was, that we thought we should just point out. So I put that into our minutes, which I think I sent to you, Kate. I just sent it to Connie because I didn't think to send it to her, but she would now have it too.
Great.
Obviously, content would have to be delivered, but it's just a little bit of an outline. The second thing is, as many of you know, we have been working for a number of years on dune restoration after storms, work on paths to make sure they don't get widened too much and ruin the dunes. And the state now has both Maine Geologic Survey and the DEP now have some materials that weren't available a few years ago on, both for the town and for private owners on how to protect and preserve what we have, so that we don't have the ocean rushing into neighborhoods. So John and I are going to work this winter on sort of a management plan. I did attend 2 workshops for Maine Geologic Survey, and there was information about what some other towns are doing. So we're going to start some work on that. One immediate thing that I did learn that I think could help us immediately if we have bad storms this winter, and I'd like to make a motion to this effect, and that is that previously when we have had, at least in recent years, when we've had really bad storms and tons of sand washed up onto the beach, we're lucky in that it usually just comes up the pathways at both ends. We don't really have overwash problems into the street like lots of other places have. But we have ended up with massive amounts of sand. And I learned that it can go back onto the beach. It can go back into the paths. There's some ambiguity whether a permit by rule is necessary or not. And I'm actually having a conversation with the woman who knows this in the DEP tomorrow. But previously we've taken the sand and, just taken it away, and everybody has shaken their heads. And I think the word was that, well, you couldn't put the sand back on the beach, which struck everybody as kind of ironic. So there are specific rules and there are specific ways to do that. If we did have to get what's called a permit by rule, the downside is you have to wait 10 days before you put it back. So for example, it could be plowed into the parking spaces along Proctor and those places where we have parking spaces, the town could come in with the bulldozer and push it all over to the side, clear the road, bring it back from Proctor, let it sit there until it's time to go back onto the beach in 10 days. The way these permits work is if the state doesn't object, you just do it. It's effective immediately. But there's some dispute between the two departments whether it's necessary or not to even get a permit. So the motion would be to ask the town to, if it in fact is legal and legit, that we adopt a policy to do that in the future, and start immediately as soon as we know that it's fine. Saco has been doing it for years. We had a site walk up at Ferry Beach where they have horrible problems. Camp Ellis, excuse me. But they've been doing it for years, putting right back out onto the beach. Well, that's some people like if you look at the DEP do's and don'ts, it suggests you don't need a permit. And if you look at a workshop they gave at the last beaches conference, it says you do. So
I'm all for put it back. If they don't like it, they'll tell us.
Amen. But it'd be good to get this. We'll find out. Do we need to wait until we know, Paul, or is this something we can move at this point?
Well, we can do it either with or without a permit. And if it requires a permit, then I think the sensible thing to do is prepare the permit right now and keep it in the draw. Right. Hopefully we don't need it this winter. But if we do need it, it's available, it gets filed, and in 10 days, we move the sand back.
Right.
I'll back you on that, Paul.
Thanks, Ed.
So I think what we're asking then, maybe the motion is that the town would agree to take the effort required to put the sand back into the walkway and into the dune front. I mean, this isn't going to go out on the beach necessarily where people are going to be walking and swimming. It's going to rebuild the portion of dune, or at least a piece of it, that was eroded away. The motion would be the town would be willing to take that action. We'll see whether we need to get a permit in line or not. That's something later. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and there are very specific rules on how you do it. It can't be more than 3 inches deep on the beach itself, but you can go deeper on the pathways. It destroys our pathways. It digs down, it erodes the sides.
Exactly.
And we could refill that area.
That's where you want it. I mean, that's your protection. So yeah,
right.
That sounds like a bad part-time job, going down from the DEP and measuring how deep the sand is that we put back.
Well, we want to talk about that. We want to fly LiDAR, but that's another thought. We'll talk about that later.
Okay, and I'm assuming that the application for the permit has to come from the town.
Yes.
So we need your cooperation in that effort too, but you'll do the
if required.
You guys will do the research on.
Yes, I'll do a memo after I talk to the gal tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll do a memo on and attach all of the specific rules. It's very short and sort of bullet point on what you can do and what you can't do.
Okay. Can you then put some form of what you're just saying to spit it out as a motion that covers both aspects, both the town getting behind the policy of putting the sand as far as possible back on the beach and participating in the permitting process once we have the information on that?
Sure. So my motion is that we ask the town to, consistent with DEP regulations, to put the sand back on the beach when it washes into the road.
Second.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion on it among committee members? I see all heads shaking no. Okay. Do we have anybody waving their hand that wants to talk to that point? And
no one so far.
Okay. All right, then I'm going to call the motion. Let's take a vote on it. Carol,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Jen? Yes, okay. Ed,
Aye.
Barry,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So the motion's carried unanimously.
Thank you, Paul.
And thanks, John, for helping with that. The only other, John, we had talked at the last meeting about when we might invite Megan to give a report from last summer. Were you able to get a
I was not able to reach her on that score. I do know that the DNA testing is just about complete or complete.
good.
We'll have a report on that shortly, was my word. But I neglected to ask her about meeting, but I would think certainly within, we'll talk about when our next meeting is going to be. But if it's 2 months from now, I would think that would be a reasonable timeframe to request.
Okay. Do you have another item that I put on the agenda for you all? Do you have anything you want to report, or is that basically referring to the meeting with Megan with the water testing?
Yeah. Yeah. I would. I'll show. Thanks to John for going to the Board of Selectmen with our resolution back in, when was that? In October on the water quality.
One comment on that is I'm afraid some of it was interpreted to think that we have an amazingly large crisis at Goose Rocks, and we truly don't. In fact, we don't really understand what the numbers are providing in terms of danger to human health. We know what the numbers are for the fecal indicator bacteria, and we know what the EPA says are the numbers, but how they really associate to human health is not fully understood. So there's more work that needs to be done. We're meeting with Lori and Allison and John Kreider to look at doing analyses to try to determine whether we truly have an issue or whether this is something that is just in the natural cycle of marshes and not something to be overly concerned about. So the jury is still out on that. And I feel pretty optimistic in what the results are going to be, but let's just say that.
Yeah, I would
I think
just
we can all. Oh, sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I've asked Megan at the state. She had a number of recommendations. She gave a report to the town, and I think a report to the Board of Selectmen last January or February. Anyway, there are a number of strategies that she suggested to the town, I mean, I would love to be hopeful and optimistic and say we have a de minimis problem. And one way, to my simple way of thinking, is we have a lot of DNA samples for 4 years that we have not tested. They're sitting in freezers. And the reason they haven't been tested is the state has a limited budget. I would love to instead of, we've done 65 samples, some duplicates for a 4-year period. I would love to do 200 samples, even coming to the beach committee and asking for money to do that so that we could, not say, oh, let's do 200 samples over the next 3 years. And we're still left in a position saying, do we have a problem? Do we not have a problem? If we were able to do a lot more DNA results and get DNA results and come up with a very low number, that would be great to know. And then we could better advise the public and be able to discuss it and talk to the press about it, et cetera.
Clearly, the DNA work is going to be critically important moving forward. So that's the direction.
And we've already put forth the motion, which the selectmen have taken under advisement.
Right.
Okay.
John,
Is
can
that-
you tell us about the recycle program? How did it work at Goose Rocks? Were we successful? Did we cost the town money?
We did not cost the town a nickel above our contracted value. For the entire half a year, we started in January And in that time, we have not incurred a single penalty fee. So I'm just thrilled at our town.
Yes.
We had a bumpy start with some things, but folks really bellied up and learned quickly, and we're doing very, very well.
Great. Thank you. Good.
And great communication skills there with those flyers about what to do and what not to do. Yeah.
And I hope people care. I mean, they want to do the right thing, and so it's just been really good.
Yep. I think you're right. Wonderful. Great job.
Good. Thank you.
Next, we'll try to work on composting.
Yeah, that would be the next thing.
Something like that. That would be amazing too. For those like me who don't garden and have all this stuff they'd love to give to someplace.
Yeah.
As you're fixing dinner every night. Okay, so does that wind up natural resources, do you think? Great report.
Yes, thanks.
All right, good. Okay, let's move on to Traffic and Safety Subcommittee. And Barry, I don't know what I know you've been doing stuff for sure, but I don't know, and I'm looking forward to hearing.
Okay, well, thanks, Kate. So just as a recap, there have been two volunteers, Art LeMay and Tom Adler. We've been soliciting input from the community. Some people, neighbors, et cetera, have given us their thoughts as far as what's going on with the traffic. And it does go back to the comment in the chat from the Mr. Kramer, I believe was his name, that, speed during the summer, and as well as congestion, as well as too many landscaping trucks and too many garbage trucks and all sorts of things. We've come up with a laundry list based on the observations of folks. I think it was week before last, maybe it was last week. Tom and Art and myself met with Lori and met with Police Chief Sanford. We walked through the listing that we had, the observations, some of the recommendations with the two of them. They were very helpful. They were very, very encouraging to us in terms of agreeing with much which was said, and on the other hand, pointing out things that, where people were perhaps complaining about things that maybe they didn't have the right to complain based on other towns, et cetera. But all told, it was very encouraging. The takeaway from that, and I personally, I've kind of been tied up the last week, but I'm putting together a sort of a revised presentation, what we went through with them, but to incorporate their input. And I'm hoping before Thanksgiving, I'm going to send that out to this committee. I want everybody to see it, and I want your input in terms of what you think we should go forward on. Some of the ideas are, pretty traditional, the crosswalks and the speed bumps, et cetera, but I do want to get that kind of input. And then there were some other, concepts about traffic flow and some of the electronic methods we could use to advise people where traffic spots are, et cetera, and different lanes, a little bit more involved that would involve signage, et cetera. But some good ideas, as I said, that we got back. And I want to get it to that next step with your involvement. And of course, I'm going to say at the same time, anybody from the community, you've got ideas. I can honestly say some of the best ideas that I've seen have come informally from people, and just when I'm walking along the Kings Highway and meet someone, and they'll say, "Gee, I heard you on the call. What do you think about such and such?" Those are the ideas that we're incorporating. So that to me is encouraging when it does come from the community directly. But I do think we're going to be in a position where we can institute some of the changes. And I think what's driving it, this part of the discussion we had, which I thought was telling, was the sort of the increased usage of the beach. Much of it with the campground and Binnacle Hill and what's going on at the tides and what's going on at Hidden Pond. I mean, things have changed. And I think there's a willingness and an awareness that we probably do have to make some concrete changes to some of the traffic rules, et cetera. So I would hope maybe this coming week I can get you out the document, and then we can decide whether we just want a number of people from our committee to actually work on it, or we want to have, it depends upon your interest and your feedback at that point.
Okay. Then, so we should probably we'll hope to see something, in the next couple of weeks, and at our next meeting, whenever that may be, we'll really try and dig into that and get you more feedback. Is that what you're hoping for?
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. That sounds good to me, unless anybody has other questions. Anything?
Thank you.
All right. It's great to see so many, the time and expertise that people are putting in on this, and members of the community. That to me is extremely exciting, that this is a much more active community than perhaps it has been in the past. And it's also facilitated by Zoom, I have to say, too. The fact that many of us who live not here full time can still participate in the beach and in the activities surrounding it. So, all right. So let's move on to the next is, are there any public comments on matters that we haven't already addressed on the agenda?
Hey, just so you saw, did you see the chat that just says that Cape Elizabeth has a town composting
Yes,
program?
I did see that. Yeah.
Okay.
I was delighted to hear that. And I thought there was somebody here who was, or either whether it was a splashover from that or somebody here at the beach, I think was, or in the town, I shouldn't say it was necessarily at the beach, was interested in a town composting program. I haven't heard any more about it, and I would certainly be interested in it. I mean, I don't think that that's necessarily the Beach Advisory Committee's purview, but it's an interesting concept, I think, in general for the town. Goes along with the recycling efforts, et cetera. So I'll go back to my other question about, do we have any comments or questions or public comments on matters that we haven't already addressed on the agenda tonight?
I don't see any hands in the audience.
See none.
Okay. Well, then let's move on to anything under other business other than things like mail delivery, which again is not necessarily totally our purview, other than to speak up and say that, and if the postmaster happens to be listening tonight, which I'm sure he or she is not, that we have some real problems, at least at the Goose Rocks Beach end of town, in getting any sort of prompt mail delivery, but hopefully that will be resolved. Any other business that anybody wants to pull up? I did see, Carol, I did see the email from the person whose name I can't.
Kramer.
No, this was about the thing about the somebody sent into the Goose Rocks Beach Advisory Committee Facebook email page, looking for somebody to talk to about dog ordinances.
Yeah, she wants to write an article in the paper. I'd send it to you.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't have any problem. I'll give her a call unless this is somebody, a reporter who's writing an article for the Bangor paper.
Yeah, I forget which paper.
No, it was for the Maine Municipal Association magazine.
Okay. About dog ordinances and what's going on in various towns about them and what are problems, et cetera. So I unless somebody has dying to do that on their own or has some objection to it, I think
it's yours, Kate.
Thank you so much. I will give her a call tomorrow. All right. And otherwise, question is on future meetings. Now, as we all know, for the last umpty years, we have been addressing the issue of when's our next meeting at each meeting. And Paul and Carol, who go back a lot farther even than I do, have suggested that in the past, when the BAC was first founded or operating, that it was more of a regular calendar set meeting date. And that, in fact, which would imply that we would, in theory, have a meeting every month. Now, that's not been our mode of operating, and there's no reason that says if we go to that routine that we can't cancel meetings in specific months.
Or have it every other month.
Or whatever. But I think that what one reason that I've been persuaded around to this view is that this town is getting busier. And for example, as long as we stay on Zoom, which I think for a lot of reasons, I hope we will stay on Zoom, even if it's safe to go back meeting in purpose. I think Zoom has been particularly beneficial for the Goose Rex Beach community because there are a lot of people who own property here don't live here full time or live perhaps the other side of the country, as Jen can attest to now. So the Zoom has been really helpful in keeping people in touch, and I hope we will be able to continue with that. But as we found out the other night, last Wednesday, when one town entity was holding a Zoom meeting, an interview with a well-known author, and another, then the Board of Selectmen had decided to switch their Zoom meeting to that night, so they had to truncate the library presentation, and that's when I found out that apparently there is only one Zoom pathway for the town. So in other words, for as long as we're going forward with meetings, we would do better probably to get on the town's calendar to have a set time that's set aside for us, as many other committees do. And as I said, more committees that we have, and more committees that are becoming more active. So I think we could eventually face a little bit of a traffic jam if we're going to come at the end of each meeting and say, now we'd like to find a date,
We're with you. Okay, yeah.
So
How about every odd month, and then if we want to fill in on an even month, we can ask to do it on that Monday.
well, see, I'd rather go to, let's take the whatever Monday. I went ahead and asked Tracy to check on this, and she talked with Dave about what's available. I had a feeling it might be Mondays because we've been doing a number of Monday meetings as we are tonight. That seems to be not a super popular night for other committees. And so she said Monday would be the best, and the first, third, or fourth Monday. I think we would be better to, even though we don't intend to meet every month, I think that there are times that if we take say third Monday, then, we can cancel if we're not going to do it. In the depths of winter, like for example, I doubt very much that we need to have a meeting in December. I think any of the issues that we have on the plate and the subcommittees may decide to go ahead and meet or not during that time period. But in the past, we've traditionally over the winter usually had a meeting in the fall. Now we've had 2 meetings this fall because there's been a lot on our plate. And then we take a break until after the holidays, usually have 1 meeting sometime in the depths of the winter, and then start when we get into the sort of March, April timeframe, doing more frequent meetings to get ready for the many things that impact us more fully in the summer months. And then, of course, we try to do the 2 summer meetings where we used to do them in person at the beach itself so that more people could attend. But obviously, a lot of people can attend on Zoom. So I would say given that we're considering communication changes and signage changes and a website, it would seem that we should schedule it every month and then have one in January. If we don't need one in February, that's fine. But it could well be that I just remember when we did the sign the last time, it took, repeated meetings to get it right, and then it had to be produced, and brochures had to be produced, and you can't wait till June to do that.
I think we should do it every month because we have a lot going, and I think very honestly, it gives us a deadline. We're having a meeting. Let's see what we have got done so far, and I think it will keep us motivated all winter long. We have a lot. I mean, this committee is doing a lot. Yeah. We can always cancel.
Yeah, what we did in the early days was the chairman we had it scheduled. We started Mondays because it was the free night for the TV. And the chairman would, several weeks before, send out a note saying, I think we can cancel in December. Does anybody object? And if somebody objected, we had a meeting. And if nobody objected, we didn't meet. And then we just have to remember to take it off the calendar and let Dave know, and et cetera, so that.
Right. But I think, and again, I think, Paul, you had presented that as a favorable point too, that if we select a certain date for each month, then we can all kind of keep that date open as we're scheduling the rest of our busy lives.
That's
Rather-
helpful to me.
Yeah,
And I think if we do it, then the rest of the people will know, the community will know that,
Yeah.
you know, until we straighten out all the communications, this is our best way of communicating, I think, with us.
right. I don't see much of a downside to it.
Either.
We're not being charged by the Zoom time, as far as I know. So I would propose that we, and I guess maybe I can do it as well. Somebody else do it as a motion. I'm not sure that I'm supposed to be doing
I
it.
would just suggest the only downside is we're going to tie up a number of Mondays that other people won't be able to use, and we won't be using them. So again, I would have argued to put it every other month and then fill in the odd months when you need it. But if it seems like the motion is every month, so let's go ahead and do it. Which month? Which Monday?
And I feel if it turns out as we actually operate, and I agree with Carol that I think we've taken on a lot of interesting projects, a lot of, with the subcommittees, very active subcommittees, that we would be, if the town is finding that we're not using Zoom settings that have been set aside for us, they can come to us and say, hey, we've got, 3 other committees and you're blocking the road. But I would like to get us on the, and I have no concerns about, I've only heard back, Joanne said Mondays is not great for her, but, she said, I'm going to be on for another couple of months.
Which Monday?
Which Monday?
Yeah.
Did anybody have a preference on which Monday?
First or third?
First or third, I would go with.
Third.
Michael and I prefer the third Monday.
Third it is,
good.
huh?
Well, there's your answer.
That's good.
Third it is.
Okay, so do we need to do this in the form of a motion?
No.
No.
Thank you. All right, I'll just get back to, well, Dave's already heard, we're opting for, but I'll send an email to Tracy and Lori tomorrow that we would like to be put on the calendar for the third Monday of each month. Now, the big question though is, do we want to start this in January? Because realistically, we're not going to be doing
We're not going to be in December. Yeah, starting January.
Okay.
And we probably should meet in January, and then we can
Right.
decide whether to skip February.
January 17th.
Is what?
January 17th, next meeting, right?
Okay. Great.
That's
Great.
That is Martin Luther King Day.
That's Martin Luther King Day.
If that causes a problem for the town, we'll work it out with them. But I don't have a problem with.
Not a problem for me and Michael.
Yeah,
Just want to make you aware.
Thanks,
Okay.
Dave.
Okay. Great. Then I think we are ready for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Everybody raise their hand if they agree to the adjourn. And meanwhile, everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I can't
Thanks.
wait to be able to take some part in Christmas Prelude this year. Enjoy all that. Hopefully we'll see each other out on the streets and watching Christmas tree lightings or whatever.
You all come to Atlantic Hall on Saturday. It's going to be great.
Oh, I
Will do.
looking forward.
Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Great. Thank
Good night,
you.
See you,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.